People like to talk about corporate capitalism, but what are the actual companies out there controlling the world? Number 1 may surprise you.
Number 20, Visa. Visa is a major credit card company headquartered in California. It was one of the first major credit card companies, started in 1958. It was actually a part of Bank of America at first, but after fraud, scandal, and corporate mismanagement, it spun off in the 1970s into its own company. In 2007, Visa had an initial public offering, and now it is worth nearly $300 billion in market cap. It's really an incredibly successful corporation. However, Visa and competitors like MasterCard and American Express is partially responsible for the large amount of credit card debt that many consumers have today.
Offering such easy lines of credit tricks people into spending money they don't have, and folks can get trapped under thousands of dollars of interest payments.
Number 19, JPMorgan Chase. This company is one of the big 4 large American banks, along with Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America. Not only is it also a major investment bank, but it is the world's most valuable by market cap. They have a hedge fund unit, the 3rd largest in the world. They have Chase Bank branches everywhere. They have credit cards and private wealth management. In short, if there's a financial instrument out there, JPMorgan Chase has some connection to it. But they aren't without their fair share of controversy. Their risky trades were a big part of the 2008 global credit crisis and subsequent recession. And they were embroiled in the massive Enron scandal of 2002.
Finance is a dirty game, folks.
Number 18, Johnson & Johnson. Another household name, Johnson & Johnson has arms that deal with medicines, medical devices, household goods, beauty products, and even baby care. It's almost 150 years old and is one of the most stable companies from an investment perspective. The market capitalization is over $350 billion. Having major branches involved in different but related segments helps keep the company resilient. They need it because recently the company has had to defend itself in a number of lawsuits dealing with asbestos in their famous baby powder and assigning blame for the massive opioid epidemic in the U.S.
Some of those legal battles are still ongoing even as of the recording of this video.
Number 17, Nestle. Another massive corporation, Nestle is most famous in the United States for their chocolate, but they are a Swiss company that has been around for 150 years. They're mostly in food and beverages, including bottled water, coffee, tea, spices, soups, candies, frozen food, snack food, pet food, cereal, milk, and even baby food. There are over 2,000 different brands that all fall under the Nestle umbrella, and it's valued at over $300 billion.
Like with other massive multinational conglomerates on this list, Nestle has had its fair share of controversy.
For them, it surrounds promoting baby formula in the 1970s, which was later found to be worse than breast milk, and continual promotion of bottled water, which is bad for the environment. There are also doubts about the labor practices, as Nestle benefits from child labor in Africa for harvesting its cocoa. Number 16, Exxon Mobil. Exxon Mobil is a truly massive oil and energy company. They produce nearly 5 million barrels of oil every single day, and their market cap is nearly $300 billion to boot.
If any company is the symbol of fossil fuels to Americans, it's Exxon Mobil.
Their biggest controversy is, of course, the Exxon Valdez oil spill in 1989, which trashed much of the environment in Prince William Sound, Alaska. Their cleanup effort was pitiful. They didn't pay enough in damages with their settlement, and it was the worst oil spill in U.S. waters up until 2010 and Deepwater Horizon. But America is thirsty for its oil, and ExxonMobil will continue to make a profit as long as we don't have the proper alternative energy sources at the necessary scale. Number 15, Toyota. Here's a less controversial company. Toyota does one thing and does it quite well. They produce cars and lots of them. Toyota is the largest company in Japan by market capitalization at nearly $250 billion. It has made over 250 million cars since its founding over 80 years ago. Compared to other auto brands, Toyota has a reputation for efficiency, reliability, and durability. In fact, aside from occasional incidents stemming from overworked employees, Toyota's main controversy is that its famous Hilux pickup truck is used in guerrilla warfare, in the Middle East and Africa. There was even a war between Libya and Chad in the 1980s called the Toyota War, named because the Hilux and the Land Cruiser were the main vehicles used by the combatants in the desert landscape.
If your trucks are being used as light tanks in off-road combat, you probably built those machines to last.
Number 14, BP. British Petroleum, or BP, is like Exxon Mobil. They produce oil, nearly 4 million barrels every day. And like Exxon Mobil, BP's Deepwater Horizon spill in 2010 is a landmark environmental catastrophe, one that poured over 200 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico.
It also cost BP $65 billion in cleanup costs, fines, settlements, legal fees, and penalties.
Millions of animals were killed or injured, a dozen workers were killed in the explosion, and hundreds of thousands of people were exposed to toxic oil residue along the Gulf coastline in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida. But the company, unlike so many animals, survived this disaster and still trades at a market cap of over $125 billion. Number 13, Royal Dutch Shell. Finally, an energy company without a massive oil spill on their record. Royal Dutch Shell is a super major oil and gas corporation, part of Big Oil alongside BP and Exxon Mobil. With a market cap of over $225 billion, Shell is certainly one of the biggest in the world. Formed in 1907 after a merger between the Netherlands' Royal Dutch Petroleum and the UK's Shell Transport, the company has grown over the last 100 years and operates in all aspects of the oil and gas business all over the world.
From exploring new oil fields to selling gas at the pump, Shell is synonymous with oil.
Of course, their environmental record is spotty as well, with recent leaks showing that executives at the company had clear knowledge of the global warming issue for decades and chose not to do anything about it. Number 12, Tencent. The first of a pair of incredibly large Chinese tech companies, Tencent was founded over 20 years ago as a messaging service, similar to AIM or Facebook Messenger. But the owners decided to branch out, acquiring different video game franchises, launching a full social media app, and venturing into financial technology and online banking. Over the years, Tencent has gobbled up smaller companies and become a massive conglomerate, with everything from autonomous self-driving car startups to WeChat, a massive social media platform that rivals Facebook in size. They even have acquired valuable media deals like exclusive distribution rights for HBO shows in China. And yes, they have partial ownership of popular games like Fortnite and PUBG, and major ownership of Riot Games' League of Legends. The company's market cap today, over $400 billion.
Their biggest competitor, the next company on this list.
Number 11, Alibaba. Tencent's brother company, Alibaba, is currently even bigger, with a market cap of over $500 billion. But Tencent has passed Alibaba in the past and may pass it in value again in the future. Only time will tell. Alibaba was founded by Jack Ma 20 years ago, and it is the world's largest retailer and e-commerce company. If you live in the United States and need to get a large quantity of cheap goods shipped from China, Alibaba is the marketplace to find it. It's got a massive infrastructure built up around the world, with efficient logistics for moving items as quickly as possible from factories to consumers. In addition to e-commerce, Alibaba has some exposure to cloud computing, AI, online payment platforms, and media or entertainment services.
Who knows what the future holds for this company?
Number 10, Pemex. Another petroleum company, Pemex is Mexico's national oil and gas corporation. It was created by the forced nationalization of privately owned energy companies in 1938 by President Lázaro Cárdenas. Its value has gone up and down over the years, peaking at over $800 billion in the mid-2000s, but most of the shares are not available on the public market as the Mexican government owns them. And of course, like other major oil companies, Pemex had its own deadly disaster when the Ixtoc-1 well exploded in 1979, releasing 140 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. Because Pemex is a sovereign company, the government dismissed lawsuits against it by litigants, which meant that the company only paid $100 million in cleanup efforts. Additionally, Pemex suffers from stolen oil, when cartels or gangs breach oil pipelines in desolate stretches of desert and siphon off millions of barrels of oil. This stolen oil is then smuggled into the United States and sold secretly to refineries.
Hopefully in the future, they can clean up their act.
Number 9. Walmart. With a nearly $350 billion market cap, Walmart is a massive mega corporation. With over $500 billion in revenue in 2019, Walmart is the largest corporation in the world by incoming dollars. There are over 2 million people employed by Walmart, which also makes it the largest employer in the world. Unfortunately, that has led to countless controversies over labor relations in the company, including repeated union-busting tactics to keep employees from collectively bargaining for better wages or working conditions. Tons of lawsuits and legal violations have piled up over the years, though Walmart has remained profitable despite all of this. If you want to purchase anything from groceries to clothing to electronics, Walmart is often the closest option with the widest selection, or at least it was before e-commerce took off. In fact, 90% of the people in the United States live within 10 miles of a Walmart.
It also has locations elsewhere in the world, totaling over 12,000 stores. Truly a giant in the world of retail.
Number 8. Facebook. Facebook was founded, as most people know, by Mark Zuckerberg in 2004 out of his Harvard dorm room. The legendary story of the precipitous rise of this social media juggernaut was even dramatized in the movie The Social Network. What does Facebook do? Well, it's pretty obvious. This company primarily owns and operates the website Facebook.com, one of the largest social media sites in the world. That's worth nearly $600 billion in market capitalization. In addition to the flagship social media website, Facebook acquired Instagram, WhatsApp, and Oculus as subsidiary companies working in the technology space. To be fair, if you're watching a YouTube video, it stands to reason that you've probably heard of Facebook.
It changed the way human beings interact, and it made Zuckerberg into a meme and a household name.
It also made him and many others obscenely rich in the process. Number 7. Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett, the legendary investor and famed Oracle of Omaha, is the president and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, which has a market cap of over $500 billion. Berkshire is a holding company, which means it strictly exists to purchase assets that executives think are likely to go up in value. That means real estate, stock in other companies, or complete subsidiaries. Berkshire Hathaway owns Geico, Dairy Queen, Duracell, Fruit of the Loom, Long & Foster, and more companies outright, and has significant stakes in American Express, Wells Fargo, Coca-Cola, Bank of America, United Airlines, Delta Airlines, and even Apple. The company is famous for having the most expensive shares in the world, with certain Class A shares being worth over $300,000 each. Why? As the company grew, Buffett never split the stock, nor ever paid a dividend to shareholders. The stock just keeps rising.
This legendary investor has returned about 19% annualized since 1965, which is about double the ROI of the general stock market over those same 55 years.
Number 6. Alphabet. Alphabet is the parent company of Google, which actually owns this website, YouTube, right here. With a market cap of nearly $1 trillion, it's one of the most valuable companies in the world. Like many massive corporations, Google is a tech company, and Alphabet was created as a holding company to diversify the different businesses they'd acquired. Founded by Larry Page and Sergey Brin in 1998, the website became the premier search engine used all over the world, and their famous PageRank algorithm became the backbone of modern search functionality. As they began obtaining revenue from advertisers on their search engine, the company started acquiring other firms such as Android, YouTube, Waze, and dozens of others. Currently, the company is awaiting approval to acquire Fitbit.
It's also one of the most prestigious companies in the world as an employer, and many young computer science students compete to get jobs at Google or similar prestigious tech companies when they graduate.
Number 5. Amazon. Like Alphabet, Amazon is a major tech company with a market cap of nearly $900 billion. Its CEO, Jeff Bezos, is one of the richest men in the world, with a personal net worth around $100 billion. Founded in 1994, Amazon started as a simple online bookseller, competing with stores like Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Borders, and more. Now Amazon sells just about everything in its online marketplace, sells web hosting services via Amazon Web Services, and owns a mess of dozens of subsidiaries, including, famously, Twitch.tv and Whole Foods. Like Walmart, Amazon has faced numerous criticisms relating to their business practices, including tax avoidance, labor abuse, and surveillance. In fact, both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have publicly targeted Amazon as an example of a corporation taking unfair advantage of regular people.
All this from the humble beginnings of an online book retailer.
Number 4, Apple. If you've heard of the iPhone, you've heard of Apple. Their suite of computer hardware, mobile hardware, and various software products is extremely profitable and led the company to be worth a stunning $1.2 trillion. Along with Amazon, Google, and Facebook, Apple is one of the big 4 tech companies today. Founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in 1976, Apple started off selling personal computers. It evolved over the years, experiencing ups and downs and skyrocketing with the introduction of the iPod line of products in the early 2000s. From dizzying success in the 80s to near bankruptcy in the 90s to a revival in the 2000s to dominance with the iPhone in the 2010s, Apple is a wild story. In the 18 years since the first iPod was released, pushing Apple back from the brink on the back of mobile devices, the company has sold over 2 billion iPhones and 400 million iPods. The line of products also includes the iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and the various Mac computers.
Put together, this makes Apple the world's largest tech company in both revenue and assets.
And on any given day, it might be worth a few $1 million more or less than number 3 on this list by market cap. Number 3, Microsoft. Bill Gates was the original tech magnate. After founding Microsoft in 1975 alongside Paul Allen, the men became billionaires as their company skyrocketed in value. Microsoft owns the world's dominant operating system, Windows, and the famous suite of Microsoft Office software. It's acquired major subsidiaries like LinkedIn and Skype, and competes with Amazon via its Azure cloud service. It even jumped into console gaming in 2001 with its Xbox line of products. It also produced the famous Internet Explorer web browser, though later supplanted it with Microsoft Edge. And it has produced the Surface series of laptop-tablet blends as part of the hardware branch of the company. Like its competition in the tech space, Microsoft is diversifying its bets with forays into AI, virtual reality, and networking via the Internet of Things, or IoT.
Will these information technology giants continue to dominate the world in the 2020s? Who knows?
Number 2, Saudi Aramco. The last oil company on this list, Saudi Aramco, is similar to Pemex as a state-controlled oil and gas company. It is the largest oil company in the world, and the upcoming IPO may set the price of the company at a dizzying $1.7 trillion. It's also extraordinarily profitable, with over $200 billion in earnings in 2018. It owns and operates the largest network of oil wells, pipelines, and refineries in the world, the Master Gas System. It produces a stunning 3.4 billion barrels of oil per year, though that number fluctuates depending on the price of oil on the open market. This company is tightly associated with the royal house of Saud, and King Saud's family has immense wealth obtained from the oil extracted from their country. It is also the world's single greatest emitter of CO2, with 3.4% of all emissions worldwide coming from the production of oil under Aramco's control.
It will be interesting to see how things change with Aramco as a publicly traded company, and if it will bring better corporate governance to the state-owned enterprise. Now, most people assume that Saudi Aramco is the largest company in the world, but there's one corporate structure that beats it and every other company on this list by miles. But first, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, click subscribe, and speak up in the comments. What smaller company do you think will have a spot on this list in the near future?
Number 1, SAIC. The State-Owned Assets Supervision and Administration Commission of the State Council, or SASAC for short, is a special commission that oversees trillions of dollars worth of businesses that are all controlled by the government of China. In a sense, it is the state's holding company for everything from shipbuilding to nuclear power to telecommunications to logging to pharmaceuticals. The total net worth of the companies under its control, $7.6 trillion. There are about 100 companies, all nationalized, that sit under this agency's jurisdiction. The number keeps shifting because of constant churn of mergers, privatization, acquisitions, and splitting among the subsidiaries. But if there's one corporate symbol of the absolute power that the People's Republic of China holds over its own people, it's the Central Commission that oversees all the state-owned monopolies.
Imagine if the US government took over dozens of private corporations, from big oil to the big banks, and put them all under the control of one agency. That's pretty much what China has done here.
Mind-boggling.